all the all the files that we create. We'll of course post it to the Patreon so you can download the files. And then I'll hopefully post the recording to the YouTube channel tomorrow after Google processes it tonight. So what I thought we would do is I've selected a series of images, and I thought we would walk through some of the images. And one thing that you'll have to get real good at is, because your customers are going to give you some really crappy images, and we have to use various techniques to be able to create those images or recreate the images so we can get an SVG file so that we can create our 3D model. And so I have a collection that have come in, um, throughout the week, and show you some different techniques that we can use to be able to get this in an SVG format. And we have to do it quickly. Either we're not charging our customer anything, or our customers are not going to want to pay much of an artwork charge. So we've got to be able to turn this stuff around pretty quickly. So I just thought we'd go through some of these and show you some different techniques and ideas of how to go about doing things. Every image sometimes takes a different approach depending on what the image is. So I thought we'd start with this one. Now, this is probably the most recent one I got. And in this particular situation, we have an image. I don't know if it was captured off the internet or what, but we have a couple of colors here. Obviously, we have red and black and white. And that's significant to us because that will tell us kind of what our approach might be. So I'm going to right click and choose Trace Bitmap where it all begins. And you could see here, it gives this little preview. And you can see that it looks kind of good, except for the fact that with this particular setting in Inkscape, it's only looking to see if the pixel is white or if it's black. So there's no in between. So in this case, you could see it's looking at our red color and it's determining that it's black. And that's not going to work for us. So if we adjust our threshold slider, and by the way, we are in the single scan brightness cutoff mode. So if we scale this down, now you could see where there was red, now it's just white. So that's one of the drawbacks to this particular option here. It's either white or it's black, or that's it. So this is okay, except for the fact that we've lost all of our red bits, and we need those red bits. So how do we capture those red bits, right? So there are other options. So underneath that single scan mode, we could go to, for example, this color quantification. And you could see that there's an outline there, right? But then there's a bunch of other stuff that we don't want. And we could try auto trace and see what that gives us. Now this is a little bit closer to what our original graphic was. So we could go ahead and choose apply and see what we get. And you could see this is what we get. And that's not useful. So we'll go ahead and delete this. So what do we do? Well, the next step then, of course, would be to look at some multicolor options. And so that's another option. You can see this is brightness steps, and you can see that it's turned all of our gray, or all of our red to gray, which is fine. That could potentially work. But if we increased our scans here, you could see it says 118 scans. I'm going to back that back down and just go ahead and hit apply and see what we get here. And you can see what we get is absolutely useless, right? So that's no good. So the long and short of the story is, as it relates to Inkscape, Inkscape is only good, in my opinion, at one thing, and that is the basic single scan. We'll click back over here, and the brightness and cutoff. So as far as I'm concerned, Inkscape doesn't have any other option but that. And this, it does a pretty good job. You know, this is not a great quality image, but it will do a pretty good job. Now, we'll go ahead and hit apply. Let's look at it a little bit more closely. And you can see that our shapes are relatively smooth. We have points. And so this is not too bad. Here, you can see, maybe it's just a little bit, right? But even that is not too bad. In 3D printing, that little bit of wobble right there, if we didn't fix it, that little wobble is not that significant. So from my perspective, this is usable, okay? But we lost all of our red in this scenario. So how would we go about capturing our red? So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply again. And this is where our knowledge about how Inkscape works will just become developed. The more logos that you convert, the more you're going to remember, oh yeah, I remember I did that wolves one, and that was very similar to this, so I'm going to use that technique type situation. Like you'll see as we go through these images, we're going to use different techniques as we go through them. So how do we get red? Well, let's make this black just so you can kind of decipher this a little bit better. We'll make this magenta, okay? So you could see where the red is missing, right? So this is how we're going to fix this. So we'll start with this little piece. That'll be the easy one. So we're going to go to our pen tool. So it's right here, this little pen tool. That is the B key on our keyboard if you're a keyboard shortcut junkie like I am. We do have snapping turned on. So we're just going to click right here at the edge of this existing magenta shape. Click at this point right here, and then we'll just click over here. And then we'll come here, and then back to here again. Now you can't really see what I just created there, but this is what I just created, this little shape right here, okay? So then we'll switch to our node tool, and all we have to do is take this straight line and make it a curved one, okay? So that we have now created this red shape. I know it doesn't look like it, but we did. So now if we take our magenta shape and duplicate it, now you can see we've created our red shape, right? But what we have to do is take the magenta shape and then shift click our red shape, and then we have to trim everywhere the magenta shape is overlapping. You see this? It's going to trim it away. Now you see that right there? We should fix that. So not that one. This one. We just double click to add a node. So now you see that red shape that we created is overlapping, right? So let's go back here. So we have our magenta shape selected. Shift click our red shape, and then we're going to hit Control minus. Okay, now what that does is that is the same as going to path and difference. So try to remember at least these couple of shortcuts, the Control plus, the Control minus. We use those a lot. So ta-da, you see, now we have our red shape, and that's what we needed, okay? Now, we duplicated the magenta shape, but we only have one of those. And the reason is every time we perform a cut function, we lose the cutter. There's no way around that. So that's why we have to duplicate it first and then perform the cut, and then we lose the cutter, and we have just what we need. So now, the fun part, I think this is an interesting thing. It's like, okay, I see now. So now how do we apply what we just learned here for the ear? How do we apply it on something more complicated like this big red piece? You know, at first glance, you think, oh my goodness, we're going to be here all night, clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking to go around this thing. But that's where the technique comes into play. So we're going to go back to our pen tool, and we're going to just click down here. And then we're going to click right here at this point, somewhere around here. And then we're going to come out here. Out here. Look at here. We're coming way, way out here, right? But then we're going to come back in. So we're going to click right here. And then we're going to be a little bit careful right there. And there. And there. And then we're coming back out. I'm exaggerating this just to show you it's really easy. So now we've created this mess, right? So believe it or not, what we just created here is the same thing that we did over here. So what we're going to do is take our magenta piece and duplicate it. And now we get this. So now we're going to do just what we did over here. Shift click the red piece, and we're going to hit Control minus. Now, it doesn't look at first like we've really accomplished much of anything, but if we pull this away, now you can see we have all of these cuts in this red piece. You're probably thinking, well, how is that going to help us? Well, if we come up here to path and we break it apart, this is where the magic happens. Everywhere where that magenta piece overlapped our red piece, we now have a cut. So you see here, boom, you take that piece away. Now this is white, not this color. So we delete those. And then we come over here. And now we have a little bit of an issue. You see this piece is connected to this piece. So that piece didn't break apart. So we have to fix that. So if we come down here, you can see there's a little bit of a strange thing happening right down here. So let's go ahead and double click on this. And let's delete those few nodes. So we'll just select them and delete them. And then we'll just double click to add a node here. And then we can come back here. And we will try this again. So see how this is overlapping right here? Let's delete those two. Okay. So all we have to do is we're just grabbing that magenta. And you see right here how it's just overlapping, just that tiny little bit. That's all we really need. So now what we're going to do is duplicate the magenta again, and then just trim our red piece again. So shift click the red, Control minus, and now you'll see that piece should have been disconnected. So it's not. So let's go ahead and choose path and break apart. We didn't do that step yet, but now you see that piece that we didn't need, now it's completely taken away. And now only thing that we have left is that red piece that we were originally missing. So it's a pretty straightforward process. Now, if we look at it in wireframe mode, there's this piece right here. Let's go over here and take a look at this. You see this is our second piece, and then our magenta piece, or our red piece rather, is the first. And this is significant because we need to cut a hole. This piece here, we need to cut a hole in that red piece, but in order to do that, it has to be up top. So now we can't see it, but it's there. Let's give it a different color. So now you can kind of see. So we need to cut a hole. This piece, we need to cut a hole in the red. So to do that, we've got our green piece selected here. Shift click the red, Control minus again. And now you still see like we have a hole there, or it still appears to be there. If I move it, you can see it is cut, but there's another piece underneath that. So let's go ahead and go into maybe a wireframe mode and take a look at that. Sometimes it's helpful just to go ahead and turn a piece off, the visibility off right here in your layers palette. So now we can see this underlying piece right here. Okay. So yes, we could go ahead and just delete that underlying piece because we don't need it. All right. So go back here. So where are we at now? We have most of our red pieces now. So we have this piece, which is our red. We have our ear, but we don't have this piece right here. But we don't have to worry about that right now. Let's go ahead and just grab everything and just slide it over here. And let's make this black so we can see this a little bit more clearly of how this all looks in comparison to this. So we're getting close here, but we have all of our white parts missing, okay? So I think the smart thing to do here is to take all of our red parts So we're just going to select one red shape and come down here and select same fill color. And we're just going to put all those into one piece by hitting Control plus. That is the same as if we came up here to Path and Union. So we'll just call this red. Okay. And we'll just turn that off. So now we've got this. All right. So now that will allow us to turn all this into white. And you'll see how this is going to go. So we're going to select our black and go to Path and Break Apart. And then this piece here, this very outside piece, we're just going to move to the bottom of our layer stack by hitting the End key on our keyboard. And let's just give it a different color just so we can see it a little bit better. So this piece right here, we know that is going to be red in the end. So let's take that piece and Control click red and combine those two together by hitting Control plus. That is the same as Union. And we'll just call it red. Okay, so then we could toggle that back on and off again. So you see there, so that's red. All right, so now everything else that is sitting here technically is white. So let's go ahead and just select everything. And let's make it white. And let's go ahead and hit Control K. This is a new keyboard shortcut that we're talking about now, which Control K is combine. So we have a bunch of interior parts. Hold on just a second. We got to let somebody in. So we have a bunch of interior parts here that we can't see because we broke it apart. So let's look at them by going into wireframe mode here. So there's some interior parts here that we can't see. And the way we're getting in there, I have a keyboard shortcut that allows me to toggle between normal and outline, which you can get right up here, View, Display Mode, and you can toggle between these two right here, normal and outline. And then you see there's a toggle option, and that's how I'm toggling between Alt-Q. That's something we have to do a lot of. So we do not want to grab our green in this instance. That is going to remain black. So we just want our white pieces, and then back to Control K. All right. And so you can see some of these pieces kind of dropped out on us. But if we go into Path, and what we're doing when we're hitting Control K, we're combining. And then to break it apart, it's Shift Control K. All right. So if you could remember those keyboard shortcuts, we use that a lot, so that could be helpful to you too. So now let's kind of bring this all together and see what we created here. So this, let's go ahead and make it black. And then let's go ahead and turn on our red. And I see, let's see here. I see a potential issue, right? Because we only see that piece of our red, but maybe it's because we don't have it in the right order. So this is our white. Okay, so now if we look at this, compared to this, we basically have the same logo. We don't have this outline, but everything else we do have. But I think we do have one remaining issue, and that is where there's red, I believe, we have white, where we don't want white. So we don't want any white in this particular instance. I mean, we could leave it this way if you wanted to. Tell you what, let's go ahead and make an option. This might be a little bit difficult to understand, but there is an option here. So when we get over to creating our 3D model, the way this is going to work, we have our backplate here. Okay, so let's just say that was 2 millimeters. And then on top of our backplate is our white. Okay, and if you notice here, everywhere there's red, currently everywhere there's red, there's white. There's a white underlay. So on everything. Okay, so this could work. So we could do black at say 2 millimeters. We could do white at 2 millimeters, and then we could do red on the top at 2 millimeters. Okay, and this could be useful to do it this way because that eliminates color changes. When we do things and stack one color on top of another, then that allows us to minimize our color changes. Now, the only place where we have red up here on our eyeball, we don't have white underneath it. Okay, so what that means for us when we go to build the model is on this particular layer, if we just left it the way it was, on this particular layer, you would have white and red, and it would have to switch back and forth between those two colors. So on this particular logo, is it a big deal to have a few color changes? In my opinion, no. But that's just something you got to think about as we're building our files, is how exactly we're going to do this. But for what we're doing, we're just doing a little keychain, so we're not doing anything super big. So I would not have, like if I was doing a hype chain, maybe I'd do it differently. But in this case, we're making a keychain, so wherever the white is underlaying the red, we need to get rid of. And so all we're going to do is duplicate the red, shift click the white, and control minus. And everywhere where there was white underneath red, now there isn't. So see here, underneath the ear here, there's no white under there. And underneath all this area, there's no white under there, okay? So that's that. So this is the one we're going to use right here. So I'm just going to turn this one off, and we're just going to focus on this one because we still have to add this backplate, this little red border here. So to do that, we're just going to go ahead and select all of this and group it together. And then we're going to duplicate it by hitting Control D. And by the way, to group it, we just hit Control G. And you could also, let me back up here a second. We could also just right click and choose group that way too, over here. Or we could even come over here to the layers and right click there and group as well. So lots of different ways to group. But so we'll group it together, duplicate the group by hitting Control D. And then we'll come to the lower group, give it a color. I usually use like this green color because now we're going to add a offset. And to do that, we need to do it with a path effect. Now, if you're brand new to Inkscape, you're probably not going to have this little icon. But if you come over here to that drop-down arrow right there, that's where you'll find path effects. Okay, and then there'll be a drop-down arrow in path effects for your offset. Now, we don't know how much offset to use. So usually I start with 6 or 4 or 8, somewhere in that range. And because we're doing it to the outside, we just enter 6. But if we were doing offsetting to the inside, we'd enter in a negative. So now you can see that just so happens 6 just so happens to look pretty good. So we're just going to run with that. So once we've applied our offset and we're happy with it, then what we have to do is hit path and object to path. Okay. Now there's one little issue when you're dealing with offsets in Inkscape, and it did show its ugly head right here. Sometimes you have to look for the spikes. And so we'll just delete that little spike. The rest of it looks okay, but sometimes that just happens that way. I don't really have an explanation why. All right, so now back over here to layers. So we've applied our offset. So we went to path and object to path, but we're still in this group, okay? And so what we have to do is ungroup it. So we just right click and ungroup. You could do it here in your layers palette, or we could just come over here and do the same thing and ungroup it. So now it's ungrouped, but now we're going to go to path and we're going to choose union, okay? And if we look at this, we have one solid plate, which is what we need for our project here. So let's go ahead and resize this to the finished keychain size. And I'm going to say for this particular example, we'll do it 67 millimeters. And that is roughly 2.5 inches. That's what that equates to. So we're going to go ahead and save this. And let's call it, we'll call it Class Wolf. All right. And when you save it, I'm just hitting Control S to save. And of course, it's always going to save as an SVG file. So there we go. We have our artwork in place. Now, in real time, if I was to sit and do that and just, you know, blaze through it, you're probably looking maybe 10 minutes invested time to do it. Okay. So in this particular case, it's not that hard to do. Now we're going to look at a similar logo. where we have some issues. This guy right here.
Quick question, Kevin, about that one. With the green on the outside, you didn't turn it green because it's under all the other reds that's on the top layer. I mean, you didn't turn it red.
Right. For our purpose,
Mm-hmm.
the whatever the colors are here in Inkscape are irrelevant because we're going into bamboo. So it really could be green, it could be red, it could be pink, it could be anything.
Got you. Okay, thank you.
The reason that I turned it green to begin with, just so we're clear about that, we made a group, right? And then we duplicated the group. And this piece is black, right? So when we duplicated it, the piece, the group that was underneath, that would be black too. So when we offset it, we would offset it black. So we couldn't see visually that 6 millimeter offset, what that actually looked like. So that's why I turned it green, so that when I did offset it, there was a difference I could clearly see if that was enough of an offset. So that's why it turned green first. But this guy is similar, and you'll see that the technique that I use for this one, I use a similar technique to convert this one. But we're going to get there in a minute. But I wanted to show you another option to this particular artwork, so you could kind of like maybe understand some of the differences. So another option here to create this same design, and then you can kind of decide, well, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? It's still a little bit fiddly. To get where we got was a little bit fiddly. It wasn't bad, but you do have to have some know-how. But now this, maybe you have to have less know-how. So let's go in and take a look at this website here. This is Vectorizer AI. This is the one that I use. So it costs me $10 a month to use it. And I do a lot of conversions of images. And so the nice thing about this website is either it works or it doesn't. So we're going to look at a case right now where it works, and later we're going to look at a case where it doesn't. But at any rate, we're going to just click here where you can insert our image. And so we're going to use the same starting image, and it'll do its little thing here. Okay, and so then we can download our result. And the main thing here that we want to make sure that we check, obviously we're going to convert to an SVG, but this one right here, stack shapes on top of one another. That's what we need. So we're going to go ahead and hit download. And you can look at this. I don't mess with any of these other options. These are all the kind of the defaults here. But we'll go ahead and click on download. And then we'll save this. And this will maybe get us a little bit closer. I don't know. So we'll hit Wolf Tester, something like that. We'll save that. And I'm going to give you this SVG just so you can play around with it if you want to. So now back here in Inkscape, let's go ahead and import that SVG. So it's on my desktop here, so we can just type in, there's our Wolf Tester right there. And then open it up. And this is what our result from Vectorizer AI. Now, if we zoom in here, you can see it's not awful. I'm not overly concerned. 3D printing a keychain, I'm not really overly concerned about that. Those little bits and bobs, you're not going to see that when you go to 3D print, so you don't have to stress too much about it. But you can see we have a group, so we're going to right-click and ungroup, and you see we have a million more groups. So we'll just keep doing that until we don't have a million groups. Okay, and so now you see we have, looks to me, about 3,000 pieces or so. We have a lot of pieces. Whoa. Okay, so maybe we shouldn't have ungrouped so much. Let me back up a second. So we should ungroup. The reason that we have those groups to begin with is because it kind of takes all of our colors and puts them in groups. And I forgot that step. So now we're just going to back up. So that's why we had those groups. So now you see all these little squares, we can get rid of those. And as I click on them, see that there's a whole group of them. See there? So now we have this. Now we can ungroup. So we'll just select everything and come over here to one of these groups and now ungroup. And so now we still have quite a few pieces, but we have significantly fewer pieces now. So now how do we process this image? Well, let's look at the image and see what the results were from Vectorizer AI. We'll start here with our border. Look at there. We have our whole build plate. Perfect. Let's just turn that off a moment. And then what do we have here? Perfect. Solid plate. We'll go ahead and get rid of that. Now we have our white bits here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the white bits. So we select one and just hit the shift key, shift key, shift key. I think I have them all, turn them all off, and sure enough, I do. So now we're going to, this piece here, maybe we'll need it, maybe we won't. So I am just clicking on the pieces I know that we need. So I know we need that piece, shift click that piece, shift click this piece. I know I need all of those. So now we have a bunch of remnants, and you see it says path, 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 all these path, path, paths that are nothing, that are not turned off. We know we don't need any of that. So we just come in here and delete all of it. I'm going to go ahead and turn those off. Let's leave those on, I guess. Tell you what, let's do this. Let's take the logo we finished and put it on a new layer. So we'll just click right here. That creates a new layer. And then we could select these and right click and choose move to layer. And we're going to move it to layer 2. And then we could turn that layer off. And then we're back here to layer 1. So all these parts, so we'll just click the first one here and then come all the way down and click the last one, shift click, and then we can turn them all on at once. So now we're back to this again. So now we do want to clean this up a little bit, because when we go into Bamboo Studio, we don't want to have to modify 1,000 pieces here. If we were to take this into Bamboo Studio right now, we would have to set the color for each one of these pieces. We'd have to set the thickness for each one of these pieces. Might have to rename each one of these pieces. We don't want to do all that. So this is our back plate. So we'll just go ahead and name it back plate. Okay, and then we can just turn that off. And then this is our black back plate. And we'll turn that off. And then let's go ahead and take our white pieces here and hit Control+. And then we'll just toggle that off. Did we get everything that is white? We did. So let's go ahead and just name it white. And then we could turn that off. And then we'll take all of our red pieces here. So that one, and this one, and this one. And we'll go ahead and Control+. Okay, and then we'll toggle that. So we got everything but our ear. So we can shift click on our ear and Control+. And now you can see we have all of our red bits. Now I do want to take this piece and cut a hole in our red. So that's why I saved that. So we can shift, so we have our black, shift click our red and Control-. And now we can turn that off. Now these two pieces that are left, I don't actually know if we need those two pieces. So for right now, let's go ahead and weld them together. And then let's just turn them off. So I hit Control+ and then I'll turn those off. So now we'll go back and put everything back on here. So that piece, we need our white and then our red. Not that red. So it must be, that's our red. Okay. So those two pieces we don't need, because as I move those away, you can see nothing changes. So yes, we don't need those two pieces. But our red, we're missing our ear up here. So that's one potential issue. And that piece right here, this piece right here, Where is that coming from? We got to find that piece because we need to cut into our white piece here. So let's see what we've got going on here. Back to red here. So this is red. So we'll go ahead and set that to red, but red needs to be on top of white, apparently. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to fix that. We're going to cut a hole where this ear is here, but we're missing our black. So we have that, but we should have had a piece of black here, and now that's gone. So what we're going to have to do is back up. We do need that piece. So let's go ahead and break that apart. We didn't need this one, but we do need that one because that's part of our ear. All right. So now let's go ahead and just turn these back on and see what we can make sense of here. So this is our red, and it needs to be on top of white. And we need to go ahead and cut in this piece of our ear. We need that piece of white gone. So we're going to go ahead and we have our red selected, shift click our white, control minus. Now you see what happened? Our red went away. Why? Because I forgot to duplicate my cutter. So we have to duplicate the red, then select the white, and then cut. And so now you see it is cut. And then there's a piece of black hiding underneath there. There should be right here. This piece right here, we need to move it to the top of our layer stack. And by the way, if you want to do that with a keyboard shortcut, it's the home key. We'll take it to the top of the layer stack for you. So now we want to cut into the white, control minus, okay? And now you can see what our white looks like right there. So I don't know. Is it a bit more fiddly? To me, in this particular case, it was almost about the same amount of fiddliness, if you ask me. But that's just another way of when you're dealing with a multicolored image, that vectorizer.ai website is pretty useful. It does usually do a pretty decent job. Sometimes we have to work the artwork a little bit depending on the original quality of our image, but it's just another option. Like I say, to me, it was probably equally fiddly though.
When you broke it apart, it fixed all those little white pieces that were by under the chin and stuff too.
Yeah. Yep. And so you see how that's not perfect, but in 3D print, keychain size, it's not going to matter. You're not going to see that. You know, if we were doing a hype chain, would I clean that up? Maybe. So if I wanted to clean that up, you see all those nodes right there? We could just come in here and delete all those nodes. And now we have a straight line. So, you know, you could be as fiddly as you wanted to. Same thing here, like with this curve, you know, you could delete those nodes and be real particular with that curve too. So you could clean it up if you really, and make it perfect if you wanted to. But for our purpose, it doesn't necessarily need to be that perfect anyhow. So, all right. So let's go ahead and let's save this again. So this time we'll hit File, Save As, and we'll save it to the desktop, and we'll call it ClassWolf02. So this is the Vectorizer AI version. And save it. And we could resize this to the finished size too, which of 67 if we wanted to. All right. So let's go ahead and convert this into a 3D model real quick, just so it's done. And then we will look at some more logos and some different conversion techniques. So let's go into Bamboo here. I know technically we spent 40 minutes doing those two options, but in reality, if you were going to sit and do either one of them, I think you could probably just spend 10 or 15 minutes and get the job done. Does anyone here use Creality Print software? I did a video earlier today on Creality Print, and I was so surprised at how terrible that slicer is. It's absolutely miserable slicer. Something that we could do so simple in Bamboo Studio. It's like I could not figure out to save my soul. But I made a video earlier for someone who was trying to follow the same process that we do here in Bamboo in Creality, and you can more or less. But I had double over time. But I did finally got it somewhat figured out, but not totally. All right, so here we are in Bamboo, and let's go ahead and import. We'll do the vectorizer AI one. So that was, let's see here, let's go to our desktop here. Where did we do with it? There it is, Class Wolf 02, that's the one. All right. So there it is, comes in 10 millimeters thick. It's always gonna come in as whatever the first filament color is. And I guess we'll go ahead and make a can opener keychain. They're all the rage. So we'll go to the Objects tab. And remember when we combined the red and the white and we didn't have all those bits? So we just have 4 bits to deal with here in Bamboo. So we're going to call this the backplate. And then this next piece is the black backplate. And then this next piece is what? That is the white. And then red. All right. So we'll go ahead and select the red and the white and the black. And let's go ahead and go to our scale tool. We'll turn off uniform scale and we'll set all those to 1 at once. And then our back plate here, we'll set that to 6. So we're doing a can opener. It always has to be at least 6. Don't want to be less than 6, but it could be more than 6 if you wanted to. And then we have to set the colors here. So our black backplate is going to be color number 3. And then our red is going to be color number 2. So now what we have to do is set our Z height. And to do that, we're going to come here to our move tool. And there we are with our Z. So the black backplate is 1 millimeter. So we divide that by 2. That's 0.5. And then we add that to the thickness of the plate that we want to stick it onto, which in this case is 6. So this value should be 6.5. And so now you see that black is perfectly on top of our 6 millimeter plate. So now when we put on top of our white, it's going on top of our white plate and our black plate, and we have to have half the thickness of white. So it's 6 plus 7, 6, 7 plus the 0.5. So this should be 7.5. And now our white is sitting directly on top of black. And so the red is also going to be the same. So it's going to be 7.5. So now we have it all stacked up there. Okay. So we're going to add a couple more files. So we're going to add our can opener. Now the can opener file has been updated. So I don't know, maybe a few days ago. So if you had our previous can opener, it probably wouldn't hurt to go to the Patreon and download the new one. So there's our new can opener, and all we have to do is slide it out just so it's peeking out here. See right there at the, see how it's kind of, we zoom in here, you can kind of see this. So see how it's white and then it's gray right there. But if we pull it just a little bit more, just so it's totally gray all the way across, that's what we're looking for right there. So what did we do differently here? Well, before we would have to bring it forward and then we would have to merge it to this assembly and then move it up 1 millimeter and then it would be in place. Now we don't have to do that. So now we simply can just select this piece and then shift control the assembly, and we have to come over here and make sure. See, right now there's no merge. So it's saying that we don't have both selected. So we click on this piece, shift control the assembly, and right click. You see we still don't have merge. And it's a little bit fiddly now. So what we have to do is just select the assembly over here, and then we're also going to select this assembly. So we select this one, and then we can control click this one, and now you see we have both assemblies selected. Now to do the same thing in our workspace, it's just a little bit different way we got to do it. We select it. Before we would shift control this other assembly, now we just control. Okay, and we still do not have both assemblies selected. So we'll go ahead and just click one and then control click the other one, and now they're both selected, and now we can right click and merge. Okay, so now if we slice the plate, you'll see that we have our hole for our soda tab now. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and add the key tag. So Control I, go to my desktop, type in key. So there's our key tag. Import the geometry only. And then we'll move it and just slide it up here. And Control 1 will allow us to look at the top view, which could be helpful when we place our key tag. And we only want that coming out just enough to hold whatever hardware you're going to be using. So maybe I'll move it out just a little bit here. Just big enough for the jump ring. We don't want it hanging out any more than we absolutely need. So we'll select that, and then we shift control the assembly, right click and merge, and now this is printable. Okay. So we're going to slide this one over here. So what else might we want to do? Let's go ahead and slice it and just take a look at it real quick. 8 color changes. Not too bad, right? So we have, in this particular one, we have white and red on the same layer. So that's why we have those 8 color changes. And then, of course, it's going to change from white to black, and then white and red back and forth. So 8 color changes is not that bad. So let's go ahead and look at a couple other things that we might want to do here. Is we'll go ahead and make a duplicate of this. So the next evolution is, well, what if I want to print this all flat, face down? How would I go about doing that? Well, this is pretty straightforward, but we do need to do a little bit of math. So this is 6 millimeters tall, and each one of our pieces are 1 millimeter. So what we're going to do here is just alt click this black, and we're going to go to our move tool, and we're going to kind of do a reverse of what we did previously. So half of our black is 0.5, and we're going to subtract from the height of our white here. So that needs to be at 5.5. And now our black is on the same top face as our white base. And so we need to do that for all of these pieces. So if we alt click on the white piece, go to our move tool, set that at 5.5, and then alt click the red and set that at 5.5. And the only reason this works is because all of those were 1 millimeter. So now they're all on the same plane. And so it kind of looks like this. And people was like, oh, I imported it and it looks terrible. What's going on here? Well, it's because all of those meshes are conflicting with one another. So let's go ahead and slice it. But you can see in the slice view, it looks perfectly fine. Okay, so now we can go ahead and go back here, and we can just go ahead and flip this over. So we'll go ahead and choose rotate 180 degrees. And there you go. That's set up for face down printing now. And what's interesting about this, we'll see what it does here. Let me go ahead and move this one to a new plate. When it's printed face down like this, let's see if it requires supports. And now it's going to require supports for our key tab up here, but I don't know about our slot. So let's just turn on supports here. So let's do that real quick just to test something. So let's go ahead and turn on supports, and we'll do on build plate only. And we'll see if supports are generated for our slot. Yep, they were generated for our slot. Sometimes it doesn't generate supports there, but it did in this case. And we have a couple of supports there. But now you can see we do have face down printing, so this should print flat. One thing that I thought was interesting about this is if we print it face down, we only have 12 color changes. So a couple more color changes than doing it face up, but we should have a much cleaner, smoother face. Now, I like the raised look, so I would probably do it that way on this one. But face down works too. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this one. I want to show you one more thing here that side by side. So when we're doing small keychains or earrings or anything that's small, there are some settings here that we can use to get better results. So I'll do it on this one here, and that's under the quality tab. And we're going to set all of these right here to 0.25. So the initial layer, I'll go ahead and leave that at a 0.5 millimeter, but everything else, we're just going to set to 0.25, and then we'll look at the difference between the two. So 0.25, and then especially that top surface, that's 0.25, and then we'll come down here under the wall generator and change that to Arachne. And now we'll look at these two side by side. And I think you'll see right off, there's a big difference here. I did kind of screw up here. So I did all those settings under the global, not the object. So now we have, these two are the same. So let me go back in. So we're just going to reset our settings and take a look at this again. So let's go back over here. We're going to select that. And then we'll come up here. So we do want the Arachne wall generator on this one. So you see I'm still on global, which I don't want to be. I want to be over here on objects. Go to the quality tab. So back here on objects here. So we're going to do 0.25. And notice that we don't have the initial layer settings in object mode. That is a global setting only. So top surface, that's the big one right there. And then come down here and the Arachne wall generator. All right, so now we can compare these two. So let's go ahead and slice it. Tells us that we need supports. But if you look at the two side by side, you see this, the thickness of those lines compared to the thickness of these lines, it's quite dramatic. And if you look right here, this is a kind of a good example. See right there at that very sharp point, we lost a little place, didn't we? Right there at that sharp point. But if you look at this one, that sharp point is much tinier because we told it we can get in that little crevice much tighter there. So when you're dealing with small, you can see here this is a small difference, but in this piece you see there's a couple little extra lines in there. But if you look at this one, it could only do the boundary. It couldn't do the inside because that's so thick. But on certain designs, now this one here, would it matter that much? Probably not that much. But if you're using small details, small text, those extra settings of the quality. Now, to me, I like the finish of this much better, just because the lines are much more narrower than these. So ultimately, this will give you a better looking finish. And the difference in print time is negligible. Only a few extra minutes to do that tighter line spacing than this one. So I always print at that 0.25. All right, so let's bounce back over to Inkscape here, and we'll start a new document. Any questions before we start a new logo? I'm probably only going to do a couple more. I thought I would see here. I thought I would go ahead and maybe do the bumblebee. Thought it would make for a good example.
Someone raised their hand.
Oh, Howie, go ahead, let her rip. Did you have a question, Howie? No? Yeah, if you guys have questions, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away. You can interrupt me. All right, we're moving on then. Okay, so on the little hornet here, I guess he is, we're going to try to use Inkscape to convert it. So let's see what we can accomplish with the brightness and cutoff. So we're going to just go ahead and choose Trace Bitmap. And this is what we get. So you can see here, we do have some challenges because the way Inkscape looked at this, it's looking at this black and this green as one. So that could be problematic for us. Let's see if we can get any better type border situation if we adjust our threshold. So if we come down, down to here, well, that could work, couldn't it? That looks pretty good. Maybe we could work with that. So we'll go ahead and hit apply and then take a look at those results and see. I think that's workable. See, it's not perfect. Some little pieces, but again, for 3D printing, those little bumps, you're not going to notice that in the final product, I promise you. So they don't have to be necessarily perfect. So that looks pretty good. I think that's pretty reasonable. Now, just for fun, this I think we can work with. Just for fun, let's go ahead and take the same image into that vectorizer and see what it does. I suspect it's probably not going to yield us as good as results here. So let's close that out. But let's just see. To me, this is probably going to be a little bit more fiddly. All right, so that gives us that. I don't know. Maybe it'll be all right. So we'll go ahead and download it. Save as Yellow Jacket AI. And then let's go back in here and take a look at it. So this is what this gives us. So we'll right click and ungroup. And then we'll start here by getting rid of the green because we don't need that. And then we don't need this one either. And we don't need this one either. Or this one. Or this. Or this. Or that. What else do we got? All right. So now we're going to do just like we did previously. Let's go ahead and ungroup everything here. So we'll come over here and ungroup. So you can see those are all our pieces. So what did we do previously? We just went in and start shift clicking on the pieces we know we need. So I'm just clicking on the yellow ones and I'll just come over here and turn them off. And then we'll shift click on the white pieces because we know we need those. We'll go ahead and get rid of those. And so what's left here? So we've got this piece, our big black piece here. We know we don't need that. And that's it. So all those extra pieces there, whatever those are, we don't need. So that wasn't too bad. So we made pretty short work of that one. So now we're going to come back in. See, there's a little bit of a strange anomaly there. So we'll double click on it and just select all of those nodes and delete. And the rest of it looks pretty solid. So let's go ahead and just select a white shape, right click, select same fill color, and Control plus, and that's going to be white. And we'll just go ahead and turn that off. I like to turn it off if I'm not using it. Just go ahead and select our yellow piece here, select same fill color, Control plus, and that's going to be yellow. And turn that off, and then that's our backplate. So that was pretty fast. And we have good quality image to work with here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and group this, right? Control G to group, Control D as in dog to duplicate, go to the lower group, change it to green, back to offset. Previously we used 6, so let's try 6 again. I can live with 6. So we'll go to path, object to path. Then we have to ungroup it, right? So we're going to right click and we're going to ungroup it. I actually accidentally ungrouped the top one. Let's zoom in here and ungroup the bottom one. So now you have those 3 parts. So we're going to go to path and union. Let's take a look at that. All solid. So now this one's ready to go. That one's ready to go. So what we would have to do to this one, so if we don't use Vectorizer AI, what would we have to do to this one to kind of duplicate what we got going over here? And it's not really that complicated at all. So we've got our main shape here. So we're going to hit path and break apart. And if you remember, we take this piece and we put it at the bottom of our layer stack. So that is the N key. And we'll go ahead and give it a different color so we can see it. And now all we have to do is kind of pick and choose what is what here. So for example, this piece and this piece and this piece, those are yellow pieces, okay? Our hands are yellow. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then what else? We've got our muscles here and this piece here also yellow. So that takes care of that. And then so what's left here is white. So I'm just shift clicking all these pieces that I want white. And then we can put them to white. And then we can go ahead and combine those to white, Control plus. Then we'll take all of our yellow pieces here, just right click, select same fill color, and then we'll Control plus. Now all those are yellow, and then this will be black. And so we have essentially the same thing as we did over here. Quality-wise, it's about the same. So that's kind of where we want to be when we're converting these logos. And you could see what we started with was not a very nice image. It wasn't a very good quality image. But of course, now that we have our SVG, converting it into a 3D model, no issues. Any questions? Anything you want to see over again before we move on here? I'm just going to save this as Yellow Jackets.
So when you're saving that, is it saving all of those layers, or you can select certain parts to save, like
Yes.
just the one?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when we save it as an SVG, it's going to save everything that's visible. So I just saved this as Yellow Jackets, right? So if I come in here to Bamboo, let's go ahead and start a new document here. We better save this. So let's save that. So this is going to be the wolf can opener. So you'll get the finished version of this. So I will have that in the class files. But if we go back in and import go to our desktop here and import that file that we just saved. That's our Yellow Jackets SVG here. So you see we get both of them, right? So everything in the document except our image, we don't get our image. So what we could do is we could go ahead and turn those off. Okay, and then if I hit File, Save As, and go back to our desktop here, and we'll just call this Yellow Jackets 22. Let's do 22. And hit Save. And then go back into Bamboo and re-import. So go back to our desktop. There's our SVG. And so now we just have the one. So that's all you have to do. Just turn the visibility of the other one off. So you can leave it in the same document, but you just turn it off, put it on a separate layer. Sometimes I'll do that, put it on a separate layer, depending on the complexity of the design. So that's all you have to do.
And real quick, how'd you add that extra layer?
Okay, so let me back up a couple steps. So let's just say we want, it's actually a good practice to do this. If you want multiple versions of the logo, what you can do is just right here, this little plus icon, that will add a new layer. So now you see we have layer 2, and we can name it, we can name it whatever we want. But if we select those bits and then right click, and we can move to layer, you see where it says move to layer, and then we can just move it to layer 2. And that will move all those to layer 2. And then rather than turn off each individual piece, we just turn off that layer. And then we would save our document. And then if we wanted to, we could turn off layer 1 and then turn on layer 2 and then resave the document again. And we would just have the bits that were on layer 2. Any other questions? All right, let's take a look at another logo. Let's see here, we got a little bit of time left. I'm going to try and wrap it up at 8:30, so I'm not keeping you all night. But let's go ahead and start a new file. And let's take a look at this one. I think this one could be interesting. So someone posted this just on a random group, and we can convert this pretty easily. What they were looking to do is to make a hanging sign, and I'm pretty sure I actually have a YouTube video that I made on this one. But essentially, we have a black and white image with just 2 colors. You could see when you look at this, see how all of this, it's called anti-aliasing. So it's not a good quality image at all. But we could still utilize it. Inkscape does a pretty good job of converting it. So we'll right click and trace bitmap. That's what we get. So we have to kind of adjust our threshold a little bit here. And this one is going to be kind of interesting because we might have to fiddle with our threshold a little bit. Sometimes we go a little bit more, sometimes we come a little bit less. So let's just go, let's try that right there. So we're really almost maxed out here. Now, we actually need to invert this image because what we want is we want the black. And so this is the opposite of what we need. So we can invert the image. And now this is what we want, is what you see here. So let's go ahead and apply this. Let's take a look at it and see. It's not great. You can see there's some rounding of the image. So it's not great. It's not terrible. You can see down here, this is a little bit better than it is up top because, yeah, so it's not great. But one thing that's really not great is this inside the net. That's not going to look very nice at all. But for the purpose of what they were wanting to do with this, we could make this work. I do want to see what would happen if we either increase this threshold or decreased it. So what if we increased it a little bit? I think it gets worse, but let's look at it and see if there's any real noticeable difference. I'm looking right here, maybe at this letter S. Not much noticeable difference there. We lose a little bit more detail in the netting. I don't know. I don't know that we've really gained a whole lot if we added to the threshold. So let's see if we add anything by taking away threshold. So make it like that, and click on apply, and then look at it. So here on the S, actually that's probably arguably a little bit more worse. I don't know. I don't think this is any better. That's my conclusion. So this is probably as good as it gets over here, which is the one-click wonder there. Now we could take that image. I don't think I did try to take that image into Vectorizer AI just to see what we would get if we did that. So let's see here. We'll try that image over here, right there. Thinking about it, that's for sure. It's taking a little bit of time. Trying to figure out all that anti-aliasing, what is supposed to be what here. Okay, look at that. Definitely better. Definitely way better. That is a way better result. I was surprised about that. So let's go ahead and save this. So I know what I would probably be using in that particular situation. Let's go ahead and import it. Just compare side by side here. If you have an image that you would like to see, the one bad thing about that Vectorizer AI is there's no demo. So if you have an image that you would like me to put into the Vectorizer just to see how good it would vectorize, you can send it to me and I'll be happy to do it. So look here on the O, you can see lots of rounding going on, but over here, I guess there's lots of rounding going on that one. But I was really surprised about the S, and on this one, looks way better than this one. You can see here on this H right here at this corner right here, and then compared to this one, nice and sharp. So this is a way better result. But I did do something that I was not happy with this netting. You can see this detail here. That's a lot of detail. So I'll show you what I did to quote unquote fix it. But let's go ahead and ungroup it. And we'll go, there's a lot of pieces in there because of our netting. You can see, whoa, and a lot of pieces. So let's delete this colored background. We don't need that. And let's see here. Yeah, we don't need that, or that, or that, or that. Let's do this. Let's select a piece of white and we'll select same fill color. And let's just turn all our white off and see what we have left here. Boy, there's a bunch of pieces. Okay, so we'll just come in here and I think we can actually go, tell you what, let's do this. Let's delete these, because there's only a couple pieces here. Don't know if, I don't think we need those pieces. No, I don't think we need any of this now that I think about it. So let's do this. This is a good case where we could put something on a layer and hide all this stuff on that layer and see if we need that layer at all. So we're going to move it to layer 2. And then we'll turn off layer 2. And then we're going to come back in on layer 1 and turn on these pieces and see here. Got a late cover. So let me get them in here. Admit. There we go. All right. So we can turn on all those layers. And yep, we didn't need those blue bits. So what we're going to do here is we got a big gaping hole in our net. So we'll go ahead and fix that. I'll show you how we're going to do that. So let's take this piece and we'll go to path and break apart. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select all that stuff and just get rid of it. So now all we have is that. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. So we're going to take this one, path, and break apart. And then we're just going to go ahead and get rid of all of that. Don't need it. Okay. So now we're left with just that. So how do we fix our net situation? Well, we come out here and let's just type in lacrosse clip art. And all we have to do is find something we like. So let's see here. What do we like? I like this. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Now, if we select this image and right click here and we'll click Save Image As, and we'll save it to the desktop here. So this, let's just call it something. I'm just going to call it DD. I can remember that. So on my desktop, I always have a desktop full of stuff. But if we come back in here to our drawing here, we're going to import DD on the desktop. So there is DD. Okay. And then we're just going to go ahead and trace bitmap this. And yes, we'll go ahead and put it back to this and hit apply. And so now we have that. So we don't need this anymore. And so what we have to do is figure out exactly what we're going to do here. I got ideas. Let me think here for a second. So let's do this. Let's just go ahead and grab our pen tool and we're going to whack the top of this one off. Okay. So we have that as our cutter and we'll shift click this and control // and we should have this whole piece whacked off here. Okay. So something weird happening here. So let's go ahead and select all of that and this. And so this is what we've got going on. Let's see here. Let's come back in here and see what's actually happening here. So let's go ahead and break that apart too. So file, break apart. I just need the top of this. I need all of it though. So you see that piece right there? I need that too. So for some reason it's stuck to that piece, so we'll break that apart too. Now let's see if we get the whole top. Bingo. All right, so that's what we need. So this part right here, we're going to go Control K and bring it back together again. And then we're just going to bring it over here and see if we can make it work. So we're going to scale it down. I did something like this when I did the artwork originally. And let's go ahead and scale it up. Something like that. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go ahead and break this apart. I thought I was going to use all of it, but I guess I'm not. But let's go ahead and break it apart. And then we can delete the outside here. And then we have just the inside. But see, we have a much nicer net than what we started with here. So we'll go ahead and Control+. And then we could stretch this out a little bit, make it fit a little bit better. And then we can go ahead and make it white, like so. And then we'll just go ahead and duplicate this over here, flip it. So you can beg, borrow, and steal from other images. That's the takeaway here. And have a better looking net than what we started with. So then all we have to do is take our white and shift click the black and control minus here. So now we cut a hole like we had originally, and then the same thing over here. And then of course these two pieces are now white, back to white again. So there you go. So you get the same basic look as what you had, but a little bit more refined. Now, the only thing that you might consider doing on this logo is it's all white, okay? But you might want to, for example, on the cross, you might, these are individual letters, you might want lacrosse to be a different thickness than the sticks. That's what I would probably do, is make this a little bit more pronounced. So we'll go ahead and make the cross one object here. And then we might do North Shore the same way. So I'm in my selection tool here, and if we hold our Alt key down, watch what we can do. You just swipe through, and anything that red line touches gets selected. So that's kind of cool. So here with our sticks, we could just Alt click here, come down here, come down here, come up here, and we just have to cross it. That's it. And so that could be a separate item now. So this piece here is separate. Our text is separate. And then, of course, we have our logo in the middle. Looks like it is in several pieces, though. So let's just select that. Control plus. So now if we go here into the layers palette here, you can see here we have just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. And that translates to the 3 pieces. I'm not sure why we have 5, though. Because we have our text, which is 1 and 2. The logo is 3. And then our sticks should be 4. So let's just toggle those on and off and see what we've got going on here. So there's our top text, our logo, our sticks, and that. There's a little fleck of something down here. We'll just delete. I don't think we need it. So that's why we had 5 pieces. So yeah, we don't want that one. So in that case, the Vectorizer AI wins. This is a much better finished result there. So we'll go ahead and save this.
I actually like those nets better than the other one. It looks like those fit much better.
Yeah, I do too. Definitely, I think it looks better. I've converted in a former life. I did a lot. In fact, if you go on YouTube and you type in Easy Stone Macro, I created some computer software for creating rhinestone designs. And so I have converted, so many logos into SVG format. It's not even funny. And I used to do a lot of embroidery, digitizing, all kinds of things. And so, yeah. In fact, one of the things I really like about Inkscape is that we can, I could digitize this design right here. In fact, I posted a video not that long. No, I don't think I made the video, but I don't think I posted it. But at any rate, we can use Inkscape here to create embroidery designs. So if you're wanting to learn Inkscape to sell different things, obviously we can sell 3D models, we can sell SVG files, but we can also, with Inkscape, sell embroidery files. And it's really, it's shockingly easy. Once you understand how the embroidery plugin works for Inkscape, it's shockingly easy to create embroidery designs with Inkscape. So
Did you say you created rhinestone templates in Inkscape as well?
Yes. Well, when I was doing with my computer software here, I'll show you. If we go out here to the old tube, so we'll go to YouTube here. Years ago, I've got literally thousands and thousands of rhinestone designs. So if you're a rhinestoner, I got you covered on rhinestone designs. But if you go to Easy Stone Macro here, this is me. So we did, all kinds of stuff like this video. Now we're using CorelDRAW in this example, but this is the I have, and I utilize it to logos. So we made half of the design, and now we're flipping it over to make the other half of the design. But yeah, so I've made all kinds of designs. Hey, there's our yellow jacket design there. So anyhow, yeah, but I did all this years ago. I guess it's 4 years ago, before I really got into utilizing Inkscape for design. CorelDRAW costs money. And it costs a lot of money now for CorelDRAW. So that's kind of almost the reason why I went with Inkscape, is because it's like $300 a year or something crazy for CorelDRAW. So, but yeah, but yes, you can utilize Inkscape for rhinestone design as well. So, but yeah, the embroidery software for Inkscape is really a cool thing. And the thing that is interesting, I'll just show you real quick if you're just curious. We could do, let's do the letter R, just because it's kind of complicated. Or maybe we'll do the letter A. You get used to how it works, but if we just break this apart here, now I don't know how big. Let's go ahead and combine this. So we're just going to show you how to digitize the letter A here. Let's see, how big is this? 15 mil. Okay, perfect. That's good. So to convert this into an embroidery file, what we have to do is we have to do these things called rungs, the way the software works. So rungs are just lines. So it's just our pen tool, and we'll give it a color. So we just draw a little segment right there. And then when we draw our next segment, we have to hold our shift key and draw our next segment. And so we're capping. That's what I call it. We're capping. And then we have to kind of tell the software, where there's an intersection, we have to tell the software how to handle an intersection. So what we have to do is we have to create a bridge on both sides, and then we have to connect it. And then it's going to come up, 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 and then it's just going to come here. When we're adding these little lines, we're telling it how to, really what we're doing is we're adding a stitch angle to say, okay, what do we do with our stitches? So that's why we're telling it to come up and around. And then we're going to tell it to come this way. And then we add another bridge and then come down to here. But what do we do about this in the middle? So to handle this is just the way the software thinks. And it's brilliant because it works, but it's crazy because it works. So what we have to do for the intersection is we just create a little line inside, a little line outside, and we have to cross those two with a line. So we have to do the exact same thing on this side. So a line on the outside, a line on the inside, and bridge it. So it looks really crazy, but the software somehow, I don't know really how it works, interprets all that mess and says, okay, we can convert that into embroidery stitches. So if we go to extensions and choose ink stitch, tool satin, and then we choose this fill to satin, somehow, I don't, like I said, I don't understand the logic, but somehow it will figure it out, and doesn't look like much, right? But if we go back in here and look at it in params, it's called params. This is where we could set the density of our embroidery stitches and all this stuff. And so now you can kind of see how it creates the embroidery stitches. Now, this is obviously not perfect. Now, there's probably some reason for that. I don't know exactly what, but sometimes we just have to make little tweaks. For example, I might just go ahead and delete this rung and this rung altogether. Okay, and so now if I go back into params, we'll just see if that had any effect whatsoever. See? And so all those lines that we put up top, that's how we told it to go around the corner there. But you can see this is much better than it was. But see how this kind of goes at a weird angle, and we wouldn't want that, right? So the reason it does that is because of the number of nodes. So the way the software works, there was 3 nodes across the top, but there's 5 across the bottom. And so if we just delete these nodes across the bottom, now we just have 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. Now it will interpret that properly. So if we go back in, so there's little things that you have to know about it, but it'll get the job done. So see how they're nice and perfect now going across? And that's it. So, and like, you know, you could add zigzag underlay and, you know, all kinds of things. Like if you're familiar with embroidery at all, that's another whole world of what you could do. But it is cool that Inkscape will do it. And the Ink Stitch extension is totally free, doesn't cost anything. And what really surprised me about it when I learned about it is that it's been around for like 20 years. Like it's been around forever, and I never knew it even existed. So that was kind of interesting. So let's go ahead and save that. All right. Let's maybe look at one more here. So let's go ahead and create a new document. And I want to show you one where the vectorizer AI fails. I think it'll fail. I haven't actually tested it, but it's a pretty miserable starting image, so it should fail. It's this one right here. Let me show you the image first, so you can see how miserable it is. So somebody wanted to turn this into a hype chain, and I looked at it. I was like, man, you better find me something better than that, because that is a hot mess, right? It looks like somebody took a picture of it, yeah, on the computer screen, and so it is very, very poor quality. So I'm virtually certain the vectorizer AI will fail, but we'll see if we even get anything that's usable. If we get anything that's usable at all, I would be really impressed. Who's trying to get busted in here this late in the day? Let's see here. I still ain't quite figured out exactly how to. There we go. Benjamin's in. Okay, so this is what we got. And yeah, I don't know how usable that is. You see how terrible, like, it's not even worth. You see, it's miserable. Like that we can't use. And I didn't expect that it would be able to decipher such junk. So yeah, totally unusable. So we just get out of that altogether. But yeah, that's not going to work. So yeah, so the vectorizer AI is a tool, but it's not a miracle worker. Let's go ahead and
So doing multicolored things takes a little bit longer than, say, just doing a regular SVG.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, yes and no. I mean, I don't know. You probably saw how quickly we were able to convert that yellow jacket. You know, it was a multicolor one, but we'll go ahead and do this one. So this one is what is that? Chargers. So let's go ahead and just drag this into Inkscape here. And we'll rotate it so we can see it a little bit better. Now, this particular one here, I probably, if I were going to do this, I probably would do it in Vectorizer AI. We could certainly do it here in Inkscape as well. But you can see here, we've got the purple and black right next to each other. That could be problematic, just like our very first logo, right, with the wolf. But let's just see what we could do here in Inkscape. So we'll trace the bitmap, and this is the result that we get. And of course, you could see initially the purple and the black is being viewed as one. So that's not a huge problem. Like if we really have to go in and fix it, we could. But let's see if we adjust our threshold, if we can get what we need. So if we back it off, and this is good that we see this. If we back it off, we do get those pieces. And we lost the chargers, but there's a technique here that we could utilize. So let's just see. So that's one option that we have. And of course, if we go the other route, it's not going to help us. So what we could do is we could almost do a double situation. So we could go ahead and utilize this one. Let's back it off a little bit, and we'll increase it a little bit here. So we could utilize this one. Let's go ahead and rotate, because you see this is going to give it to us in this orientation. So let's go ahead and put it back. So we'll utilize this one, and we'll go ahead and hit apply. And let's just give it a different color. And then let's do it again. But this time, let's pull it back. So now we have this, right? So then we go ahead and hit apply again. And let's go ahead and give our secondary one a different color. So let's go ahead and put this one on top and take a look at it. I would definitely use Vectorizer AI if I was going to do it for real, but you can kind of see what we did to get the pieces that we needed. So you see what we did there? We did two. So now if we see that there, so we're going to take the blue here and we'll trim out the green. So we're going to duplicate our blue. And then we're going to go ahead and shift click the green and go ahead and get rid of that. And so now this becomes our purple color, and this will become our black. So now we essentially have what we needed, but in a roundabout way. So just a little trickery there.
That was cool.
Yeah. And so that's what I was saying, at the beginning, like when you see so many logos and you're like, okay, and you learn various techniques. The more logos you see, the more logos you convert. There's various techniques to get to where you need to get to. So I've done so many. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this one or this one. I could do this or that, But yeah, but if I was going to do it and I didn't have the Inkscape know-how, I would just use the Vectorizer AI because I think it would give us a pretty good result here. And it's, with all these darn subscriptions with the TV channels and everything, it's $10, $10, $20, and my Patreon, $10, a nickel and dimes this, but this is one thing that I think is worth the $10 because we don't have to have all the know-how and skill and little tricks up our sleeve and all that stuff. So we'll go ahead and save this. Does anybody use any other website as far as converting to SVGs? Because this is the only one I've really experimented with.
You can do it with a Photopea.
And I think you could do it with Convertio too.
Yeah, but does Convertio charge? I think there is a.
No, Convertio's free too.
It is okay.
Unless they just put a price on it.
I got you. Because I know somebody else told me about that website, but I also have another one that I pay for. I just tried it out through. It's $5 a month through Canva, but I don't like that one. The Vectorizer AI. So this is a Vectorizer AI result. So we'll ungroup this. Lots of pieces. That's one thing. Vectorizer AI always gives us a bunch of pieces. But even though I had stack to stack things up, it didn't stack. So for example, you see here the white, the purple. So this one's going to make us work a little bit more. But so in this case, this was quicker than monkeying with all of this. But we could, like it, we could use this and it would be okay. But you can see the results, are pretty clean SVG. So from that perspective, but we did it pretty quick, just utilizing Inkscape too. So.
And then in the one in Inkscape, all we have to do is do the offset to do the back plate.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. So in Inkscape, we lost all the white, right? But our offset here will take care of that anyhow. So we'll just select this and group it together, duplicate the group, select the bottom group. We'll give it a different color here and offset it. We'll try 6, see what that gives us. It's going to take a second. Sometimes that offset doesn't happen just immediately, depending on what your image is. Sometimes it takes a minute to think about it. Now, for some reason, it's taken more than a minute here. There we go. It did it. So that's maybe a little bit thick this time, right? So let's back that off to, I don't know, maybe half that much. We'll do 3. Sure is thinking hard. Probably all these little bits. See all these little bits in the chargers? So it's got to think about all that. I like that better. So now we can go up here to path and object to path, and we can set that offset, but we have a group now. So we have to right click and ungroup. Now it's just those 2 pieces. So we're going to go to path and union, but we have all of these white areas that we don't want. We need a solid piece. So that's where we go to path and break apart. Now we have a solid piece. So we can go back to path and union. And now we just have our solid backplate, which of course is going to be white. And so there you go. That you can make a keychain, hype chain. We can do a gift basket. If you were in our class the other night, we did a bowling gift basket. You could do a gift basket. You do all kinds of different things. Pen holder. I mean, you name it. Lamp base. We can make anything with this. So there's a lot of different things that we can do. Now, the one thing I do see here on this here, either we have a stroke applied. I think we have something's happening here because there's this purple outline, and I'm not sure if it's because we have a stroke applied. So let's get rid of that. Nope, not sure. Let's ungroup that. See what's happening here. So we have this thing right there. Nope, just an extra outline that we can get rid of. Well, I guess we can't get rid of it. So let's look at this and see what that is exactly. So what we're going to do is turn off our black here. So we can look just at our purple. And then we might as well turn off our white too. So we're looking at just the purple now. And I think we just need to break it apart. Like so. Go into outline mode here. That's going to be a little bit problematic. Let's see here. Let's just delete that one piece. Might be a little bit difficult to see what is actually what here. Let's see. We deleted that one. Let's go ahead and bring it back together again. So let me back up here. Figure out exactly the best course of action. I'm going to back up one more time. So we need to get rid of all of those lines. What's the best way to do that? So we need our text and that piece right there. All right, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and break it back apart again. So we'll break it back apart again, and then we will go into outline mode here. And I know I need this piece. So we're just going to turn that off. And I know I need this piece, and this piece, and this piece. Basically, where there's no double line. You see there's no double line here? So where there's no double line, I know I need all of those pieces. So on this, I know I need that piece. I'm not worried about all these little bits that make up the grunge on the text. I think when I did this originally for the customer, I took all that stuff off anyhow. So let's see how this all works. All right, let's just see what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is a good case where we can create a new layer. If we're not sure if we need stuff or not, let's just dump all that stuff on layer 2. And maybe we don't need it. So we're going to move to layer 2. But if we do need it, we'll have it. So and we'll just turn off layer 2. And then we can come back in here on this stuff that I turned off. And let's turn it all back on. This one too. All right, so now we're back to this. Now there's some pieces, so we got rid of the extra piece of purple that we needed, but there are some pieces here that we want to bring to the front here. So all these pieces, we can hit our home key and move those to the top of the layer stack. And we will go ahead and combine those pieces, and then we will shift click because we need to cut a hole in the big purple piece here. I'm pretty sure that's what we need. So Control K. Nope, didn't like that. Let's take these pieces and give them a different color here so we could see a little bit more clearly what we've got going on here. So there we go. So yeah, so we should be able to take this and cut a hole. There we go. So that takes care of that. And that's okay. Now I don't really know exactly what's happening here. Got that turned off. So let's move this to the top of our layer stack here. And then take a look and give it a different color. In this case, we'll do a white. And we have a similar situation here where we have some interior pieces here of our letters. And we'll move it back to the top and give it a different color just so we could see that a little bit better. And yes, so we're going to go ahead and select our white, Control minus. Doesn't like that. Doesn't like that because we have multiple pieces. So, and we can only have one when we're doing difference. So we're going to Control plus those pieces together. And we have to move those back to the top of our layer stack, because it has to be on top of our white. And then we can do Control minus. All right, so there we go. So now we have this white piece here. And then we have this is showing through to the bottom. So what we can do is go ahead and take our purple piece here and cut that out as well. So now we're back to this. And what do we want to do here? Let's go ahead and can't make that white. So let's see here. I guess we could just leave it like that. What does the original look like? It's backwards. Guess it's backwards. So this needs to be white. All right, I think I got it. So what we have to do here is take this piece and we have to break it apart. So let's do that. So now we're kind of back to where we started from in some respects. So all these pieces, we need this to be white. And then that needs to be purple, which it is, but it's buried. So let's move that to the top. All right, so now we've kind of got what we need, but we need to take the interior pieces of our letters, move those to the top of the layer stack, put those back together again. So we hit Control plus, move that back to the top of the layer stack, and then we can trim out our purple letters. All right, so why did we lose the C and H? Well, we lost the C and H because it's a little bit different. So you can see it, it's just barely there. Let's see here. Let's grab this piece in question. So this is what we need back, is right there. Okay, let's give it a different color so we can see it more plainly. So we need to bring this back. And the way we do that is to close this off over here. So all we have to really do is come in here and grab a little line, something like that. We won't have no fill, but we do want an outline. And then we'll go grab our node tool here. And we just need something like that right there. And there's a function here that will take this stroke and turn it into, I'll show you, if we go into outline mode, you can see it's just a path right now. But if we go to path and we choose stroke to path, now we actually have a little piece here. So if I combine the two, that's what I was talking about, all those little tricks that we have, so to speak. We're pulling out all the stops here. So let's see if I can pull this away so you can see what I'm talking about here. So now you see that I close that off up top. And when I close that off, what I could do is I can use break apart. So when I go path, break apart, I can get rid of this pink piece now. And you can see what's left. It's that interior piece that I can now put back to purple. And now we kind of have what we needed. And that little purple outline we got rid of. So a little bit of fiddling, but we got it figured out. So now probably what I'll do is take our text and make that all one piece. And then let's see what we got going on. So there's our text. And there is our backplate. And then up top here, we have just that one piece. And what is this? Okay, that's our black. So our back plate, our text, that's nothing. Don't know what that piece is. So we could just delete it. I don't know what that piece is. So we could delete that one. And then this is our purple, and then that's our black. So we kind of process of elimination. We got that figured out. I'll save that one now. All right, so I had a lot more logos to get through, but at least you got a good idea of different techniques. And like I said, every single one is a little bit different. This is another logo we might do later on. I'll save this for another day. But I was going to turn this into an epic hype chain. I have a similar video on the YouTube channel where I did one that was kind of similar to this, where this text in the middle kind of stood out from everything that was behind it. So it was a pretty neat design that I did. It was actually for a Disney stroller sign somebody wanted. And this one here is another one that is a little complicated in the fact that up here, right here, because of the background, we don't have any image here, and so we have to kind of rebuild this part of the headdress here. But it's pretty straightforward to do in Inkscape. So each little logo has its own little thing to it. This is another one that I just thought was kind of cool that we could break apart and make this, put the bats kind of in the background and everything else would kind of be sitting out front, but it's a little bit of fiddling to get the artwork all set up perfect in Inkscape to be able to layer it the way I envision layering it in my brain. So those are a little bit more logos that are a little bit more involved. And I think I have a video on this one on YouTube. But this, somebody wanted to make into a 3D model. Somebody posted, and of course in here in Inkscape, really simple. We just up our threshold a little bit, invert the image, and go ahead and hit apply. And we get most of what we need here. So we can come in here and do path and break apart. We can delete the big box because we don't need that. And then we'll go ahead and take all of this and bring it all back together again, Control K. And what we need is actually the opposite of this. So let's see if we can figure that back out a little bit easier. So maybe we do want to invert this image and go ahead and hit apply. Because that is, nope. Let's see here. Let's think about this for a minute. Yeah, maybe we could do that. So let's go ahead and break it apart. And maybe all we have to do is delete this one on the outside here. There we go. And so now we can take everything and combine it. Yep, and so all of that should be that pink color, right? But we don't want this, so we can just double click and come in here with the Alt key and delete all the nodes that we don't need. Delete. Now we have to get in a little bit tighter here and do the same thing. Delete all those nodes because we don't need those. And then we don't need this one. And we don't need, maybe we do need that one. So maybe what we'll do is just select this line here and make it a line. And then we can kind of fine tune exactly what we want that to look like. We'll delete this node. So now we have our outline for our pink. So all we have to do here is duplicate this piece. So now we have our duplicate. So we have this piece, you see here, so we have a duplicate, and then we'll just add our offset. We'll give it a different color, and we'll do an offset, and we'll do like, I don't know, let's try 4 millimeters this time. So you see every time I do that, I change it to green so I can visually see what that offset looks like. And maybe I want just a little bit more. So we'll do 6. So now, in order to drop out all those interior pieces, what do we have to do? We have to go to Path and Break Apart. I notice it didn't do anything. And this is one thing that kind of frustrates me about Inkscape is we had a path effect applied. I'm going to back up one step. So we had a path effect applied, but we didn't come up here to path object to path to clear our path effect. So you see I have my green selected and that is still live. So what we have to do is path object to path first, then we can do path and break apart. But I feel like Inkscape should warn us that there's a path effect applied and not just not do anything. So then we'll go to path and union. So now we have our full backplate that we need to go ahead and make our keychain. And of course, we're going to add our keychain. We're not going to use this ugly keychain loop. We'll add it when we get over to Bamboo Studio. So a lot, I would say most of what we could do it right here in Inkscape, but having that conversion tool on certain logos can be helpful. Any other questions? If you guys have any projects you want to see demonstrated, like, in our next class, of course, we do the classes every Monday. So for the next 2 weeks, we have 2 more weeks of free classes on Monday. And then we're going to cut all you guys off if you're not a $20 Patreon member. But we will still occasionally have free classes. But and we had a good pop-up class, what was that, last night? Late last night, at midnight or whatever it was, on Blender. So we're going to do some more Blender classes too, because there's certain things that we can do in Blender that we can't do in Inkscape. So, and I posted a video tutorial, if you haven't seen it, on a little keychain that we made in Blender that was kind of interesting little project that you don't need any I feel like you can follow along in that video and have some success in creating that little keychain that we made. So definitely check out the YouTube channel on that. Yeah, any other questions? So if you guys have any designs that you're working on, or if you want to see what that vectorizer AI will do just by me running it through and converting it for you before you decide to purchase it, like I said, there's no demo, but I really do like it. It does a pretty good job most of the time. If I don't care to fiddle with it in Inkscape, I'll cheat and use that. All right, well, I thank you for coming. I'll go ahead and close this one out, and I will post the class files for you on the Patreon. That's where you get the class files from, and all the SVGs that we created and the can opener that we did. I'll get that all posted, and then get this recording posted on YouTube in the next day or two. So thanks for coming, guys. And
Thank you, Kevin.
Yep. I'll see you guys maybe next week. All right.
I'll definitely practice this because it's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot, but once you get a hang of it, you'll have a whole bag of tricks. You can get your logos converted. And if you just want to see how I would convert your logo, send it over. And that's what I do. I make videos every day, all day. So be happy to convert it just to show you how I would do it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, guys. See you
Good
next week.
night.
Bye.